Hi, sir. So, I, Roderick Madera McKinnon.
And Anthony Evans.
Tyler Stout.
Joe.
Our independent novel is To Kill a Mockingbird, and we'll give you a couple descriptions and a couple of the main headlines and plots of the story.
Boo, also known as Arthur Radley, is a pretty weird character. Nobody really knows what's up with him. Nobody ever sees him. His family's always in the house. The dad comes out sometimes at night, but besides that, they don't really see him. For a while, the tree in front of their house, which had the hole in it, after coming back from school, there would always be things in it like gum, carvings of the two kids, and many other things. And then one day, it got filled up with cement by the dad, and he told him because the tree was dying, but it clearly wasn't, and it wasn't sick either. Scout asked Atticus, his dad, if the tree was actually dying or sick, and he said that it wasn't, but to his knowledge, Mr. Radley probably knew better than that. Also, when they were rolling down the hill, Jem and Dill and Scout, when he got in front of the Radley house, when he was in the tire, he heard somebody laughing, but he couldn't see any noise. So it's a pretty weird family. As well, when Jem got caught under the fence and lost his shirt and pants and they got ripped, later that night when he came back to get them, they were nicely folded over the fence and sewn up, and he didn't know who it was. And that same night, just before that happened, when in front of the Radley house and even onto the porch, Jem, Mr. Radley came out and tried to shoot at them, but completely missed. And so he has quite the temper, and he's a weird guy. So Dill, one of the neighbors' nephews who comes every summer to visit, is a great friend of Jem and Scout. He makes them do tons of fun things, and he's very lively. One year, one of their neighbors, Mr. Allard, told them and believed that when they do wrong, it tampers with the seasons, and when they create sins, it starts to change things and the environment a bit. And then one year, after many of these bad things has happened, example, them going to touch Radley's house, which was Jem that did that on a dare, and other things, and trying to, when they got caught under the fence and when it started lying, the weather started to change, and it started to snow, and it had snowed for such a long time. I believe the last time it had snowed there, they said, was 1885, I believe, and so it hadn't snowed for a long, long time there, and most of them didn't even know it was snowing, what it was. They thought the world was coming to an end, so they were pretty shocked. So Jem and Scout decided to get together and try and create the best, biggest snowman they could possibly create. So what they did was they went and dug up a bit of the backyard and front yard and took piles of dirt, and what they did was they molded the snowman and basically made it the main sculpture of it out of dirt, and then covered it with snow to make it look like a snowman on the outside with snow. And then they put sticks in the arms and everything, and it actually ended up looking like one of the neighbors. So Mr. Atticus told them to take it down because it could be insulting him, or if he thinks it looks remotely like him. There was also a time when, because they like to play a lot of games where they're impersonating people. This is Dill, Jem and Scout, where they're impersonating people and acting and stuff. And so what they started to do during the summer was they started to impersonate and try to figure out what the Radleys do at their house and how they act and stuff. And so they started each having their own part and imagining what happened there. And but when Mr. Atticus saw them do that, he told them to stop because they shouldn't be messing with them. If they want to stay in their house, they should stay. Another thing which the kids did, trying to annoy the Radleys or trying to get them to come out, is one day Jem attached a note on the end of a long bamboo stick and went to the side of the Radley house and tried to feed the note through the shutters of the house, which said for him to come out just so they could talk and stuff. But it didn't work because Mr. Atticus ended up seeing them, and so they were told to never go there again. During that time, Jem and Dill were just on lookout on the sides, and if they saw somebody coming, they would ring a bell.
the setting in To Kill a Mockingbird is around southern USA. So we could say Alabama or some kind of territory around that. So basically we have the three main characters. Well, actually it's more like four. We have Jem, we have Scout, Atticus, and Boo Radley, who is basically the neighbor of the family. So one day it was Scout's first day in school, and her teacher, Mrs. Caroline, she comes across as a very kind of insecure woman. She doesn't know how to handle children. I don't think she wanted to be a teacher originally, and she really has no control over the class. And one day she noticed that one boy didn't have a lunch. His last name was Cunningham, and she offered him a quarter, which in this day and age is worth maybe $20. So she offered him a quarter, and he right away refused. And Scout had to explain to her that the Cunninghams were a family that never took money from anyone, and well, obviously money that they couldn't pay back. So this family was pretty much a very poor family compared to Scout's and the rest of the class. And so he immediately refused the quarter and just went on without having lunch. But later, Scout and Jem invited the boy to have supper with them, and they had a good time, and he had a nice full meal for once. So while the Cunningham boy was having supper with the family, by the way, the family has a maid, and she's a very strict maid, but also a very loving maid. She takes care of them very well, but is also very strict. So while the boy Cunningham is having supper with them, Scout remarks that the boy is he doesn't eat very well. Like he's very, uses his hands, doesn't use the utensils. He's a very sloppy eater. And so she calls him out on it, and later, afterwards, the supper, the maid brings her off the table and pretty much tells her off and gives her a good smack. So this just goes to show that the maid was very strict, but later on she also kind of apologized to Scout for being so, for hitting her and for being so strict. So just to go into a bit more detail about Dill, who is a boy that is a very good friend to Scout and Jem. So basically he's a boy who doesn't necessarily have any real parents. We're not really sure where his real parents are, but basically what happens is that he keeps getting passed on from relative to relative, who we're not really sure why he goes from relative to relative. Maybe he's a bad kid to them. Maybe he eats too much. You never know with him. But anyways, even though he's getting passed on from relative to relative, each time he keeps coming back to Jem and Scout. So basically it just goes to show that he's a very good friend to them, and he's loyal, even though that he keeps getting changed location. So just to go into a bit more detail about Boo Radley, or Arthur Radley, as we know, he's a very mysterious guy. He tends to stay in his house a lot, doesn't really socialize with anyone in the town, but apparently during the night he sneaks out, he prowls out of his house, and people catch him looking into their windows. So it's just going to show that he's a very mysterious guy. Nobody really knows much about him. So in the story we also have a boy in the school named Cecil Jacobs, who tends to be kind of like a bully and to Scout and Jem. And so at one point in the story, Cecil calls Scout's dad, Atticus, a nigger lover, basically. And so Jem gets really angry with him, but Atticus warns him not to get in the fight with this boy. And so it's just showing us that Atticus is also a very protective father, and he's around 50 years right now of age. And so he's a good father. He's experienced. He knows what he's doing.
So basically, this is a book, To Kill a Mockingbird, and I'll explain to you the characters. So basically, it's Atticus and his family, which is Jem, the oldest son. Then there's also Jean, who is the daughter, who is also nicknamed Scout. So basically, it's about them, and it starts off in the summer as they play whatever normal kids do, and then they have a friend who comes during the summer from somewhere else in the States to Macomb, where they are, and then they play together and stuff, and then they decide to go to school. Well, they don't decide to go to school. It's just September comes and they have to go to school. And so they go to school. The friend leaves, and then they're just at school. Scout was a very smart girl. She knew how to read, like, long before school started. They say in the book that she started reading, like, she knew how to read as soon as she saw stuff with words. And her teacher scolds her for being so smart and blames it on her father for teaching her how to read when it actually wasn't her father, and tells her that her father should stop teaching her. She finds school very, very terrible, and she hates going there because main reason is due to the teacher, who is very mean to her. One of the ways that Scout learned to read and write so early is because of their maid, who happens to be a black female, and she teaches her how to write, and she would reward her when she would be able to write just like she would do. And so the school year passes for her, and she gets increasingly frustrated due to the ease of classes. So the school year ends, and then they return to playing fun and games like they did last summer, and their friend from away comes back to Mako so they can play it. They develop a new game called Boo Radley. What they do is that they mess with Boo and his house. You know, they go up to try to probably antagonize him. And there's a game, they would go in a tire and they'd roll around, and then at one point she rolls up into their house. They get really terrified, they run away. And then at one point he has a shotty, shoots at them, misses, doesn't kill him. And word on the street was that he was shooting at a nigger.
The first character that I'm going to talk about is Scout. She lives with her father Atticus, Jem, and their black cook. But I found that she's really an unusual girl in my opinion, because she's really smart for her age, and she learned to read before she even went to school. And it says that the first time she looked at a paper, she knew how to read. She's also very worrisome for her age, and she thinks a lot, so that's also one. And she's very good. She's one of those like really good people who, you know, is just good right from the beginning. And she's basically like the perfect girl, little girl, always does her homework, everything. She's always good. Once September comes around and Scout goes to school for the first time, she's really, really excited. It's her first grade she's going. She's all excited, and she's really excited because she already knows how to read and everything. So she thinks it's going to be more advanced in the class. It's going to be easy for her. Her teacher's going to be happy with her. She's going to get like a good start off of the school and everything. She won't have to work as hard as the other students, but she's going to understand everything a lot faster because she already knows how to read. So, when her teacher finds out about this, her teacher's really upset, which I don't understand why, because it would be less work for her teacher, but her teacher wanted her teacher to teach her how to read, but I don't understand why. She was upset with her. She made Scout even feel guilty for already knowing how to read. She embarrassed Scout in front of the entire class, which was horrible. And another instance where her teacher was abusing Scout was when she offered to lend money to Walter. Her teacher offered to lend money to Walter for lunch one day, and Scout went up to the teacher and was like, don't lend him money because his parents, they don't have money, they're very poor, they won't be able to pay him back or anything. When they pay him, they pay in like nuts and stuff because they don't have any money, they're in a really poor, bad state, so don't lend Walter the money for lunch, he won't be able to pay you back. And in return, her teacher slaps her with a ruler on the wrist, and she's just abusing her. But a really good thing about this is Scout's brother always when he gets home says, it's going to be okay, your teacher's going to like you eventually, she's finally going to see you, always behind her back, always willing to just help her out when a time of need and everything like that, which I find is really, really nice of her, because her teacher's just constantly abusing her, and just, it's horrible. Her first year that she's going to school, she's getting off on a bad foot with her teacher when she knows how to read, and her teacher's just abusing her the entire time and just telling her, like, making her feel guilty in front of the entire class for knowing how to read. I found that so bad. But anyways, her brother is always there in the end to make her feel better, to tell her, you're going to do good in this. She's going to like you. School will get better. It's always like that. Her brother's always important. Character that I thought was very important was Atticus. He's respected by everyone, and it's almost as if when he talks to people that like they're scared of him. He's so respected. And well, the town has a policy against blacks, and he's the only one that will stand out and say, like, this is wrong. This isn't how it's supposed to be. People shouldn't be treated like this. All people are equal and everything. So he can't like follow the rest of the town and just keep like following everyone and just ignoring all the racism that's going on. He's not able to do that. and I found him to be very noble, and I respected him a lot for this. And I found that he's like a hero, but Scout and Jem, they don't really acknowledge him for it. They're just there, and they don't really see. So far in the book when I'm reading, they don't see him as a big hero and someone who could stand out. Their own dad, they don't really see that. So I found that really, really interesting that he has that much confidence, just stand out and talk about it and say like this is wrong. Black people should be treated equally and everything. And just when school starts up again, Scout once again is really unhappy with second grade, which I wasn't surprised because she wasn't happy with first grade. So it's just a year later she wasn't happy with second grade either. So Jem, he's such a good brother that he always tells her like it's gonna get better. It's gonna get better as the years go on. It always gets better. You know, have friends. It always just it'll just always get better, and he always comforts her, and he tells her that school's always worth it. In the end, it'll be fine. You know, school it's all turns out good in the end. And I found it really interesting how nice Jem is to Scout because he's kind of like a role model for her, and I found it really nice for Jem to do that, and he just keeps doing that all through the so we read so far in the book. So yeah, I found it really nice for Jem to do that.